I am honored to introduce to you today Dr. Art and Mollen and his wife, Paige. You may know Dr. Art for his many years on KTAR. Remember to talk to the doc, and everybody got to remember, hope you're feeling good. And for his years, and still tune in Channel 3 on Sunday mornings in Arizona. And you can tune in this Sunday and hear Art talking about a variety of things then. He has been on Oprah and Larry King and Sally Jesse and Nightline and Entertainment Tonight, Morning America. He's been all over. So he has spent a lot of time talking about health, and that's really what we're talking about today. You may know him as the founder, the organizer, and the main kahuna of the Phoenix 10K, which is going to run on November 21st, incredibly, in its 46th year. It's just amazing. It's one of the longest running races in the country. And proceeds from the race, officially this year called the 3TV Phoenix 10th Marathon. It's presented by Honor Health this year, and the proceeds go to the Mollen Foundation, which is what Art and Paige are going to talk about today. And Art spent his whole life dedicated to health. Paige has dedicated her whole life to education. And now they're a duo, and together they founded the Mollen Foundation, which combines health and education. Makes sense. So they're both dedicated to educating and empowering schools and communities on health issues like childhood obesity. And they're going to talk today about that. Childhood obesity rampant in our society, especially in the lower socioeconomic areas. And Art and Paige are going to talk about that epidemic and highlight, I think you're going to really enjoy this, their Garfield's Garden on the Corner project, which is located in the Garfield neighborhood in downtown Phoenix. Rotary 100 has a long history of hands-on projects, especially with people in need and children. And this may be one of those things that we may want to get involved with. And I thought it was important, not only the subject, but that you hear what they're doing to help children and to help people understand that they have to help themselves and that their health is so important. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, I introduce to you Art, Dr. Art and Paige Mollen.
Thank you very much for those kind words. Things certainly my father would like to have heard, but perhaps only my mother would have believed. Yes, I have dedicated a few years, we don't need to delineate how many, to health and fitness and my own personal health in terms of, just trying to stay as fit as possible, but also to the health of the community. We've reached a critical moment. There's a tectonic shift in the healthcare system in this country. It's disturbing. It's frustrating. It'll take a Herculean task to deal with some of these issues as we move forward. But one of the main issues, at this time, besides the obvious, which is the pandemic that we've been going through, and certainly the Delta variant, which I can answer questions on later on if people have any questions on that, is childhood obesity. And so our foundation basically is focused on trying to educate children on what they can do for themselves. Childhood obesity has an enormous impact on the child's health. It affects the potential of heart disease, diabetes, high cholesterol, strokes down the road. And besides the actual physical changes, the emotional changes that it causes many of these children, because often they are bullied in school because they may be obese. Approximately 17% of children are obese, 24% of children are overweight, and it's a coefficient of really not having been well educated, and any programs in the schools which teach them that basically popcorn is not a vegetable. So what we're trying to do is teach them on healthy foods. We're trying to teach them on the implementation of an exercise program into their lifestyle, and also allow them to take these messages back to their families. So that's just as important, because families can certainly support that. When it comes to overall health, I think the key, again, is pride of ownership. The child has to develop that pride of ownership of their own physical and emotional well-being. I think if we can inculcate them with a message, that they can improve their overall health, they can prevent themselves from having high blood pressure and high cholesterol and perhaps certain genetic things that are pretty much in their genetic fabric, from their parents. If we can educate them that they can potentially improve upon these various aspects of their health, then they will be interested in going forward and leading a healthier lifestyle. When it comes to being overweight, and again, the statistics are pretty ridiculous, actually, because it suggests that a BMI, of about 85% of children, that they fall into this percentile. And if they're under that 85% percentile, then basically they're not considered to be obese. But that's kind of a broad range. And so we need to try to get some of the standards changed. I think that will help as well. And then if we can get this message from the children back to the parents, and then the parents can basically be exemplary, so they can start to take care of their own health. And in turn, they will, again, try to take care of the children. Childhood obesity, in my opinion, is the tsunami of healthcare of the 21st century. We need to do whatever we can to change it going forward. It'll take a Herculean task, and just grassroots programs like the ones that Paige has been implementing. And she's the one who is the passion behind the Mollen Foundation and doing these things with our children. So with no further ado, Paige Mollen.
Hi. Well, thank you for having us here today. What I'm going to do is share my screen, if that's.
So we are a 501c3 nonprofit foundation.
We are. And so today I was going to go a little bit, we've already kind of talked about the mission. I'm going to give you a little brief overview of the history and share Garfield's Garden on the corner, and there might be opportunity for volunteer if you are interested. So I'm going to skip here and get right into it. So here we go. So we founded the nonprofit in 2008, but really didn't start our programming until 2010, where we launched in community centers across Phoenix through the YMCA and Parks and Rec. And not long after, we moved right into schools. And this was an era of time when they started reducing or eliminating PE and recess in schools. So we started by offering some programs around physical activity and programs around nutrition education that we were able to integrate into schools. And so that started in 2010. We were running these two kind of related but separate programs as we could get time in different schools across Phoenix and Scottsdale. And then around 2002, we were on the campus of a school in Phoenix, and they had a group of, it was a K-12 school, and they had a group of students protesting in the cafeteria because they wanted healthy food on their campus. They were 9th graders. We met with them and ended up working with them for all 4 years of high school, but they were interested in growing food. And so we kind of took a shift and started integrating some food education. And so we had school gardens, we grew food with these kids. And what started with a small little capstone project turned into 180 students within months rotating to this garden in Central Phoenix. It was called Phoenix Renews. It was a 15-acre community garden that has since gone. And from there, it was interesting because we had high school students who at first said, I will never eat a vegetable. I will do this programming, but you can't make me eat a vegetable. And I just said, well, hey, let's just go and grow some food and see what happens. And they were, after the first growing season, I had high school students asking me for Brussels sprouts and broccoli, and they wanted to take extra food home to their families. So we thought there's definitely something to this. When students are exposed to growing their own food, they'll at least try it. And if you make it taste good, they'll continue to eat it. And we went with that. And now we have a more comprehensive program, which is Garfield's Garden on the Corner. It's we have a district-wide agreement with the school district, and Garfield's Garden on the Corner is our flagship program. And we do curriculum development. We also we offer professional development opportunities for teachers throughout Arizona. But this is considered to us the community health hub. The school is a place where students are every day. We wanted to see them all day long and throughout the day, as opposed to outside the school day. So we integrate programming during the day for students, and then we open to the community after school hours. So part of it is that we are developing scratch cooking in kitchens again. They have these heat and serve programs at schools, and now we're bringing back scratch cooking. We have a school-wide composting operation that we hope to turn into a district program someday, and we focus a lot on sustainability principles. Let's see, move on to the next slide. And this is just a conceptual plan of what's happening at this one school that I'm talking about today at Garfield. So it's hard to see because there's a lot of small writing, but we essentially wrap around the perimeter of the school. And then where it says vegetable garden in the circle, we go into the school. So this is a program where we have vegetable growing in the big space there down this McKinley Street where you see the green arrows. We are doing all low water, desert adaptive native crops. So trees that produce edible pods, different foods that are adapted or native to Arizona that we can also teach students to cook with. They're learning about rainwater harvesting. We have a chicken coop and about 25 chickens on campus right now. We have fresh eggs, so that goes into cooking during the day. And then after school, we share that with the community. Also down McKinley, we have 30 garden beds going in collaboration with some of the community businesses around Garfield. And that food is going to be specific to sharing out with the community. And everything we grow elsewhere goes into programming for students and also will be integrated into the school cafeteria this year. And I'm trying to, anything else? We're gonna have a pizza oven in the corner here on the other side of the vegetable garden. And so we'll have an outdoor cooking space. And then inside the school, we have a kitchen classroom. So students basically grow food with us, integrated into all their core academic areas, and then they cook from the harvest during those core academic areas. So we integrate math, science, social studies. We focus on mindfulness and social emotional learning, just all core content areas. And these, on this next slide, this is really the backbone of our programming, that we have these pillars where we focus on nourishment, where we're partnering with local farms. We're integrating the food into the day, and we believe that all kids, regardless of income, have a right to healthy food. Like I said, we integrate into the core academic programming and open to the community after school hours. We focus on more than just academics. So students are learning to communicate with each other really well, to collaborate, to make a shared meal during the day. They're also completing garden tasks, and they have to work together. They learn knife skills, and they are really faced with a lot of problems around just sustainability that they have to solve together. So a lot of project-based programming. We focus on just the social emotional aspect too, especially now during COVID, when students have been off campus for in some cases a year and a half, and we just have to make sure that we're meeting all of their needs. We have the leadership is completely integrated. So in cases where it's a K-8 school, we have even the middle school students working with the younger students to teach them things like our middle school runs the school-wide composting operation. So they've done waste auditing, and then they go into the cafeteria and teach the younger students how to sort their waste. And then our entire program-wise and environmentally, we focus on sustainability principles and align with the Sustainability Development Goals of the United Nations. And now we're going to get into some pictures. This is the fun part. So I'll just show you. So where you see the card that says focus and over to the far right where the kids are sitting, this is how our programming works. So basically students come out to either the garden or the kitchen. So in the garden space, they come and sit around the circle. We do an opening circle with the students. Then we have 3 staff to a small, maybe 10 students at this program at Garfield. And they self-select to pick garden tasks that they're gonna complete during the day or during this class. And then they go off and do their garden jobs. And then we ring a cowbell and they come back in, they clean up, come back in, sit in the closing circle, and we close out the lesson. So we have this in the top left, it's just part of the courtyard garden. So you see the kids, they make the signage and they plant all the seed, or they plant transplants. And some pictures here, they're just watering the garden. And in the center, I don't know if, you can see the boys are at the table, and this is part of the cooking class. So this is the classroom where they're in table groups and they follow a recipe and cook a shared meal in their table group. And then they wait till everybody's served and they serve each other, and then they share the meal together. There's flowers on the table. They make their own centerpieces. They set the table, they clean their dishes, and then they go off to the next class. More program pictures. So this is just more of the classroom where they do a lot. It's really impressive, the skills they learn around like chopping and mincing and the knife skills, and they work very nicely with each other. In the middle of the screen, you see it's kind of all the worms are stuck together. This was a part of our composting operation. So we have multiple methods of composting. We have a rotating tumbler. We have vermiculture with the worms, and they make worm bins and they rehome the worms and make compost tea and put that into the garden. We also have a windrow and a bokashi method, which is fermented food waste. And that is a different type of composting process. Then let's see, and just here we have some of the Swiss chard growing, which has been growing that has lasted for a couple of years. It's impressive. This slide, just during COVID, we had to do a little bit of pivoting. And when students weren't on campus, what we did is we took all the food that we were growing, and you'll see on the left-hand side, and we shared this out with the community. So when families came to pick up school breakfast and lunch, it happened once a weekly in the school district. What we would do is we were working with multiple schools, and we would share the food out in produce bags with recipe cards and educational activities that we sent out to the families when they picked up breakfast and lunch. And the middle is just a lot of flowers we have growing right now, and some of the chickens down the chicken run. We have a chicken run, and this is kind of the larger space where you see a staff member working and putting together the garden rows. I think he was planting tomatoes there. We also offer other programs. This is just a sample of some curriculum we developed, a Harvest of the Month program, where there's a recipe there's a placemat that goes into the school cafeteria. And then we also have different recipes we use with the kids. In this case, a 7th grade class during August, when the cucumbers are in season. And the top right-hand side, that's an Armenian cucumber. The students made cucumber sushi. And so most of what we cook is, well, pretty much all of what we cook is plant-based. And so what we tell students is that, and what they get used to, is they can always add meat if they want, but we have a lot of meat-heavy eaters. So we just focus on the part with fruits and vegetables that they consume less in all of our programming and recipes. And this, oh, it's loud. So if you can see here, one of the boys is flipping an omelet. We have one of the farmers we work with in the middle. And then over here on the right-hand side, this is the same student like a year later, and look at his knife skills. He's pretty proficient in knife skills after 1 year. And that pretty much covers it. In terms of Garfield's Garden on the Corner, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Do you have any information on how many obese kids you've influenced to lose weight?
That I don't, because we don't actually track that. That would be interesting info to have.
Yeah, it's difficult for us to track some of those things simply because of the HIPAA.
Well, that's a wonderful program, and thank you for that presentation. But you know, I didn't see any obese kids in those pictures.
That's because they were all exercising for the past year and a half.
So we do focus on prevention. So we work with everyone. So we go into schools, and the philosophy we have is reaching all students, and hopefully that it helps the ones who need it most. And what we find is if we go during the day, the students who wouldn't normally participate, we reach them because it's very often that they probably wouldn't participate after school. And so we mainly teach them really to know where their food comes from, to interact with the food and have exposure to growing it. And then we just focus on real food instead of focusing on those like calorie counting, or it's kind of a touchy subject. So we pretty much stay focused on just exposure.
Art, this is Dave Howell, Art and Paige. And I do want to add one thing to the intro that Joss did. I think you were on Channel 10 on my newscast there before you were on Channel 3.
Well, I was with you, Dave, and it's great to see you for 10 years. Absolutely.
Yeah, wonderful addition to the newscast.
No, I was with you for 10 years, and I, you know.
Yeah, I left, and that was the end of it. But
yeah.
And I have been to Garfield. It's a great little school. That's a really comprehensive program. Have you developed a model, some way that could be replicated by others in other schools?
Yes. So I sit on the Arizona Farm to School Network as the education chair. So I'm doing a lot with a team to develop, just kind of assess what's even out there, and generally develop resources that work for everyone. And it's not a one size fits all, but we do have the Harvest of the Month programming that we developed. And that's kind of a springboard, because what we're trying to do is find the balance between integrating aligned to the standards. And that's the challenge during the day. So this program works, it's more comprehensive than that, but the Harvest of the Month is something that is easier for the schools to embrace, with the, targeting schools that have gardens. And that goes there. We have all different activities, K through 8 primarily there. And that is one that they embrace a little bit more. So we work to develop programming for schools. We also do professional development training for teachers, and then they take that back to their schools, and we provide technical assistance to make sure that it's easy to integrate into their day. So we have modified versions of the one that I showed you.
Well, yeah, my wife was a teacher at Kenilworth, another Phoenix L school, and she did a garden there, but she kind of did it on her own. It would have been good to have some more professional guidance on it. So that's good to know that you're doing that. Thank you very much. And good to see you.
And good to see you, Dave.
The part about the chickens. I saw the chickens. What are you doing with the chickens in the gardens in particular? And I know you mentioned that they're not eating meat, but I'm curious how the chickens play a role in the gardens.
Well, they play a role with the composting operation because it's fertilizer for the soil. They are laying chickens, so they lay eggs, and we're using that in the programming, and also sharing that out with the community. And the students in the 5th grade classes, they actually hatched those chickens. And so we do annually, we'll incubate and hatch, and we work with local farmers to, they give us the eggs and we give them the chickens back, because you can only have up to 20 on campus. So, and no roosters. So we have agreements with them that if we have roosters or if we have too many, then they gladly take them. And so that's kind of that's as far as we've gotten with the chickens. It's the chickens are new to us.
And Paige spends a significant amount of her time breaking up the love fest that goes on with these chickens, chasing them back into their cages.
Yeah.
No, I learned they go. So if you just wait till it gets dark, they just go right back into the coop. I was chasing him around because I didn't understand that at the beginning. And so he was entertained by that.
Well, Dr. Art, I can remember in the prehistoric days when you sponsored your team to give us all flu injections at the
yes, at the grocery,
whatever it was.
Yeah, at the grocery stores. Yes,
yeah.
I did that program for many years, and then was fortunate to be able to sell that program. I
think we even hired you to give shots at our company at one point.
Absolutely.
And also, thanks for the 10Ks. They're just absolutely fantastic. But here's my question for Paige. Many times when we see pictures of kids in the school lunchrooms and things, they're walking their trays down, and on that tray is a pepperoni pizza slice.
Oh.
And also, there are so many pictures of kids with these big bottles of Coke or Pepsi or whatever. And it seems to me, if you could eliminate pepperoni pizza and Coke and Pepsi, you could solve childhood obesity in 3 months.
It's so true. So yeah, so your students are not allowed to have soda on campus, but they do require milk, and milk is part of the National School Lunch Program. No soda. It's interesting though, we're working at the district level with food service they're working with us to create an entirely new menu. And so part of the kitchen transformation at Garfield is that we brought in all new equipment that is scratch cooking, like tilt skillets, combi steam ovens. And so we're training all of their staff to make scratch meals. And so it's a process, and it's something that we hope to see more scratch cooking kitchens. It's also a challenge because of the infrastructure is costly in old school buildings, but we have we're right now in the process of building a pizza oven in that corner of the garden. And it's amazing when you work with kids for a while, they said that they've been saying, they'll put vegetables on their pizza. So maybe that'll help. Because you can do all kinds of things in there, roast vegetables and yeah.
I have a quick question. So we're talking about the local level, and then what are we going to do at the district level? But something that's, okay, obviously I'm an overweight person, have worked with this my entire life, and have gotten more education, but then seeing oh my God, I grew up this way and my parents didn't know anything, and how do I break these habits? And it's this whole thing. But there is when we're trying to get kids to stop smoking cigarettes, or when we try to get kids to stop doing these things, there were these national things that came down on companies for marketing to kids. And I think of things like cereal, like Coca-Cola and their little bears, about these, these gushers and these fruit roll-ups and all these other things that are just not good for kids, but they're clearly marketed for kids. So what sort of lobbying or things that we can do or write to our senators, or what are things that are happening in Washington or even at the state level to try and keep that stuff from being desirable to kids?
Yeah, that is a tough one. Our nonprofit status doesn't allow us to, it's limited lobbying. We aren't allowed to do lobbying, but there are organizations out there that are working on that. One of them is Pinnacle Prevention, and they work at the city, state, and federal level. But yeah, it's definitely a tough one. I do know some local initiatives around, we're supporting a pilot through the Department of Ed this year. It was in collaboration with their farm. They were awarded the Farm to School grant this year, and it's a 10-cent initiative. So what they're trying to do is get more local produce into schools, more local food into schools, which is healthier, but it's a tough one on the, things are advertised to children all the time that shouldn't be.
I think once we get them to start getting COVID immunizations and join in that effort, then maybe we can get them to join in some of the efforts together, to lobby for some of these other issues. It's just getting everybody to agree, without having all the lobbyists, promoting their own individual agenda.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's what the issue is.
I think it's like the farm bill that trickles down to all the other levels.
So.
I've got a question. You gave some statistics regarding the percentage of students that are obese versus overweight and so forth.
Yes.
Can you describe how that varies in different race or ethnic groups?
Yeah, well, we have found that Native Americans, have a greater percentage of obesity and a much greater percentage of diabetes. The Pima Indians in particular, have a high incidence of diabetes. Years ago, I did a study with the University of Vermont, kind of studying that Pima group just to determine, what could be done with that. So, and Hispanics have a greater incidence of obesity as well. And so a lot of it's the coefficient of their lifestyle, in terms of their dietary habits and lack of exercise. And I think there are socioeconomic issues, that contribute to it as well. So, we have 35% of adults in our country that are considered to be morbidly obese, and so this again trickles down to the children, and because trying to get the parents to be exemplary. So, but those particular ethnic groups do have a higher propensity for obesity.
And as the follow-up, I remember years ago, there was a push to not have the super thin female body be considered beautiful. And I just wonder if in some of these different groups, whether there is an accepted perception of what is beauty having to do with weight.
Yeah. I think the perception, and again, because we're inculcated with a message on TV, that basically being super fit and super lean, is beautiful. So I think there has been somewhat of a tectonic shift, in that direction. In recent years, where, some of the models are overweight, but I believe that we've got a long way to go in order to educate everybody about that. So.
Any other questions, anybody?
Hey, Paige, why don't you tell them about next Saturday, as long as we got an audience, the volunteers.
We do have a volunteer event at Garfield School next Saturday, 6:30 to 9:30, I think it is, anytime during that time frame. We're going to be working out in the garden space. We have some work to do down McKinley, probably planting and getting the gardens ready for the fall season.
Thank you so much, Dr. Art and Paige. It was a really fantastic presentation. You guys are doing a lot of really great stuff.
Thank you.